Hey guys, Kyle here. So, just before the show starts, I wanted to mention our Patreon. You can pay us $1 a month as a thank you, as a tip. You can pay $2 a month to get access to one of our bonus content shows, episodes 2 days early, and a secret Discord chat where all of our Patreon donors get to go and hang out and talk with us directly. Then there's a $5 tier that you can donate to get access to a whole bunch more content. We have multiple bonus episodes on there, so please check it out. Patreon.com/itgetsweird. We don't advertise, we don't make money, so check it out and throw some money if you think that would be cool. Thanks. Welcome to It Gets Weird, our comedy show where we explore the unusual, the unbelievable, and the unexplained to try and make your world a little weirder. I'm Kyle.
And I'm Niall. And tonight I've just been thinking a lot about... I've been seeing clips from The Naked Gun all day on Twitter because I guess that movie hit digitally, which means now there's easily available files of it. And so I've just been being reminded of all my favorite jokes from The Naked Gun. And so snowmen are weirdly in my brain, even though it's like 75 degrees here on the East Coast.
I look, on the one hand, I appreciate that you're getting the Naked Gun bits in your head because maybe that you could bring that sort of energy to the podcast, and that's always something that we need.
Kind of
right?
irreverent, yeah.
Irreverent, that's a good word for it. I will need you to start maybe seeing if you can melt that snowman down and see if there's like a skeleton underneath, because just think about the season we're in. First of all, or I guess this is the season that is imminent, right?
Yeah, I see some people mad, they're like, you're thinking about Halloween on Labor Day? Yeah, fuck you. What else do I have going on? Halloween's cool.
I mean, honestly, who gives a shit? Right, I'm ready to start getting into spooky, scary shit. And I'm not gonna say skeletons because I already brought that up. Spooky, scary stuff, just in general. It doesn't have to be skeletons. Those skeletons tend to be involved. First of all, Niall, we're doing something that's a little rare for us. We happen to be recording much later at night than we usually would. So this is I guess. We could try taking this episode, really go long with it, and push it all the way to the witching hour. Just harvest some cursed energy to as we enter this time period.
That would be cursed energy. I'll tell you that much if we go that late. But I'm ready to get kind of spooky with it. Get a little late night vibes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a late night vibes, spooky edition, not adult edition.
Right.
It could be both.
It could be both.
Fuck it. But maybe it'll be a horror sex romp. I don't know.
That could be fun. Some of the horniest times of my life were also a bit of a horror romp. So I no, but seriously, I went and did a little. I've been working on some stuff in my personal life a lot lately, and I just I got done working on a thing today, and I had when I just feel a little overloaded, I just have to get up and walk around the block for 10 minutes and decompress a little bit. And first of all, over here, it hits a certain time of the day, and it starts to really cool down right now. We're still having a couple hot days, but it was nice and cool and crisp. Not cold, but probably 70, 72 degrees, right? And there's a breeze, and it felt real nice outside. And I turn a corner in my neighborhood, and you know what I see?
What do you see?
One of those 15-foot tall skeletons people start putting up that were all the craze, that people are dropping a couple $100.
Those
thing
things
has got to be
hundo.
A couple hundo. I mean, come on. But I appreciate it, but it couldn't be me. I respect it. I like seeing the skeleton. That's very fun for me on my walk. But I'll tell you this much. It did really instill in me a sense of Halloween-y vibes, so I'm there, and I got an episode for us that's creepy.
Okay, all right, hit me.
Before we get into it, though, we do have a quick email. Okay. So, this email comes from Dean.
Hi, Dean.
And the email says, "Hey, Niall, Jules, Garrett, and Kyle. My name is Dean. So one of these days, we're going to have to go back and look at the emails that mentioned Garrett and Jules and be like, hey, can you also answer this? Let's get your input.
I do pass along compliments to Jules that people send in. So she hears when she gets mentioned in emails most of the time.
Absolutely. Well, this one's going to need some of her input sometime. And Garrett, maybe we could bring them both on sometime and just talk about this exact question. Think of this as a little bit of a pulse check, because here's what Dean says. Dean says, just got done with episode 260 during the pandemic stuff. I'm binging episodes in reverse here. I know you guys are skeptical by nature, and that's great. I love it. Your jokes about things are fantastic, but legitimate question here. Is there anything in the cryptid, weird, mysterious, paranormal, or otherwise strange that you do believe in, or at least maybe more prone to believe is plausible? Thanks for reading, guys. Have a great day, everyone. So I feel like we've kind of talked about this, like every once in a while on this show.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm more skeptical than ever, but also more embracing than ever too. You know, like I think there was a time in my life where I was very like, I kind of believe in ghosts, but UFO stuff is all bullshit. And that's totally, the scales have really tipped on that one. If I had to answer this question legitimately, though, I think that I do kind of believe that there is some, like, conspiratorial government cover-up type stuff. And I realize that's a very open-ended, like, that's a huge thing to let linger there. So I'm trying to think about what I can say to be more specific. I do believe that the, U.S. government and some intelligence agencies that, are working for the government have intentionally, let me put it this way. I think a lot of the UFO mythology is intentionally well-crafted misinformation as a cover-up by government agencies, which is conspiracy stuff, right? But
yeah,
I would think that that's a pretty plausible explanation for some of the UFO stuff. And yeah, so that's for me the one that I land on pretty heavily. I mean, I still would like to believe that there are aliens, but I'm not convinced. And I bet if you pulled up a list of cryptids, there might be one or two. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but there might be one or two that I'd be like, I could see that being real. I think that's where I am. I don't know. Have you changed? Like, I feel like we do talk about this a little bit sometimes. Has this changed for you at all over the last couple of years?
Yeah, I don't know. I am of the opinion that I don't know exactly which ones, but a lot of the government has done some shit that they would like to not admit that they did. I think that's just something that if you're a reasonable human being, you probably believe, because it's been proven time and time again as stuff gets declassified for various reasons, like COINTELPRO, etc. But outside of that, this is probably an unsatisfyingly nebulous answer. But I think that, like, I have a vague, if not belief, at least like allowance in my thinking for some form of energy in the universe that like can manifest, whether it's in some form of like ghost-like behavior or weird happenstances and things. I think like
strangeness, maybe.
Yeah, like there's like I think there's like a certain quotient in my thinking for Fortiana where it's just like I think there's, whether it's through sheer force of dumb luck or some sort of cosmic domino effect, sometimes things that would not be considered normal happen, and so like that's probably not the most satisfying answer, but like I think what the thing that it really has impressed upon me through doing this podcast is that I don't know a lot of things. There are a lot of things that I cannot, if it were up to me, would go unexplained, and if it were up to me, would go unknown. And so I withhold a lot of room in my thinking and the way that I look at things, that I do not have the answer, and that just because I don't have the answer doesn't mean that it has to be a certain way. I put it aside and go, I don't exactly know about that. And that's, so I think I have a lot of, this podcast has given me a lot of that kind of thinking.
Yeah. I really liked how you said that it's not belief that you have, but rather an allowance in your thinking, I think is the phrase you said. I think that that's an important distinction that is like a little hard to describe, but hopefully people get what you're saying, because I understand what you're saying. And I think that hardline belief in something can be unhelpful, I guess. And I think especially when we're talking about this stuff, that is not just, it's just by definition mysterious and strange and oftentimes unexplained. There's no good answer for what it is. The hardline belief can constrict your ability to consider possibilities about the topic, right? And so I think allowance in your thinking versus just like straight up believing in a thing is ultimately more interesting and allows you to I don't know, entertain the mystery of it with no guarantee that there's an answer one way or the other for anything. So yeah, I'm down with that. Hey, I like that a lot. Hey, nice answer, Niall.
Thank you.
I appreciated that. That's actually a really, really fantastic attitude to take into what we are about to talk about.
Oh, good. I love when this works out.
And thank you, Dean, for the question.
Thank you.
Maybe we could get Garrett and Jules on here sometime to just talk about stuff like that.
I think what we should do for sure is see if they would be willing to come on for the mailbag episode, and then that way people could, if they have questions specifically for those people, or wanting to include those people, we can use them for the mailbag. So
excellent.
Maybe we'll check on that.
God, we're full of awesome ideas tonight.
Yeah, maybe we should record at night more often. I feel like every time we record at a different time, we're like, maybe we should do this more often.
We're fresh. It's almost like we have put ourselves in the routine of recording directly after a long day of work.
Yeah.
With no gaps in between. Anyways, Niall. Sometimes what I find happening to me when I look for stuff to talk about on this show is I get pulled into the orbit of these big name topics. But here's the thing. When you have something with an orbit, it's usually a topic that I'm extremely interested in. But these topics and their orbital pull are like fucking Saturn. They're huge and they have a lot of moons, and sometimes they have rings, right? And if you're an astronaut,
I think I'm catching your metaphor.
If you're an astronaut flying around Saturn, and Saturn represents the topic, capital T,
sure,
you could just stop off on a moon and just explore that.
That's very true. Yes, you can,
and never actually make it to Saturn.
Elsewhere. Yeah. But hey, if you shoot for the moon and you miss, sometimes you should end up amongst the stars. You know?
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Sometimes you just end up just tumbling through Saturn's rings. Forever.
Drops
and
of Jupiter in your hair somehow. I don't know.
That's possible. It's possible. So yeah, I find myself looking in the direction of big topics and constantly being caught in the things that are in their orbit. I think astute listeners familiar with these topics have probably picked up on who and what some of these big topics that I've been like aiming at for like, I don't know, 2 years now, in the world of ufology and also conspiracy theory. But I think that tackling these subtopics is a really great way of chipping away at a deeper understanding of that big central topic. So, Niall.
Sure.
This week, I went to one of the most famous writers of the paranormal and the supernatural and high strangeness in general. That is John Keel.
Oh, hey. Yeah.
I went and checked out John Keel, and I wanted to learn about an entity known as the Grinning Man.
Oh. Yeah. Okay.
Now, you will most likely know this entity by another name. Can you tell me what that name is, Niall?
It's Indrid Cold, right?
It's Indrid Cold.
Yeah.
Now, Indrid Cold has been a reference point for a number of our stories and has definitely been talked about on this show.
For sure.
This entity is often like... He's like a linchpin for stories of UFOs, cryptids, in general, high strangeness. Like, he is...
He's like the Nick Fury of the Fortiana.
Yeah,
I'm kidding.
Yeah, he's assembling a team. Well, he's almost like a Rosetta Stone of a particular era of strangeness. Like, he's hard to talk about, and that's kind of why I'm doing this. Because I wanted to get into his origin story, where the name Indrid Cold came from, and some of the notable stories surrounding him. And I wanted to see if we can figure out what he is and why there's different descriptions and explanations of him that come from different places. So, we're going to talk about Indrid Cold, the Grinning Man, and John Keel, who didn't coin the name Indrid Cold, but was there and investigating, as I understand it, when the name Indrid Cold came into being, was first spoken by the person who experienced the Grinning Man. So, Keel's perspective on this whole thing just fleshes out the Grinning Man folklore, since he was one of the people at the forefront, and there's other... He's at the forefront of this story, but he's also coming in alongside some other notable characters of early ufology that get me... Whenever their names come up, I find myself scratching my head. I would like to learn more about them, and we've talked about them before. But anyways, John Keel. When people hear the name John Keel, they typically think of his famous book, The Mothman Prophecies, which I have to admit something a little embarrassing. I've never actually read The Mothman Prophecies.
Me either.
Well, it's high on my list, but it's like it's one of the big books, I think, of the world of stuff we want to talk about, the world of weird. So I really think that, like, in the future we do a Mothman follow-up episode that also can talk about the stuff that we're going to talk about in this episode through reading the Mothman Prophecies. I think it would be worth doing in the future. But the book that I'm actually pulling from for this episode is called The Complete Guide to Mysterious Beings. This is the version from 1994, but this book is actually a reprint of a previous Keel book titled Strange Creatures from Time and Space, which is from 1970.
Okay. So it got a bit of a repackaging in the 90s.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what was added, but I think the fact that it came after the Mothman Prophecies, it probably reincorporates some of the stuff from the Mothman Prophecies, because there are things in this book, especially as it pertains to Indrid Cold and the initial encounters with this entity, that I think would probably have had relevant information in the Mothman Prophecies that could then... Whatever. I don't know actually what was updated, but that would be my guess. At least one of those things. So I understand that Prophecies, it's essential reading for this stuff. But I gotta say, Mysterious Beings is pretty sick from the parts that I've read. I mainly focused on a singular chapter about the Grinning Man, but there is some other really cool stuff in there. And I listened to people talk about John Keel, and I read a little bit about people's thoughts on John Keel. And my understanding is that the consensus, especially from the slightly more skeptical leaning crowd that discusses this stuff, is that Keel is a compelling writer who can occasionally exaggerate things alongside telling legitimate facts, all to just sort of heighten drama. I mean, it's not totally. It's a pretty typical thing to do in this field of work. But I will say his writing is compelling, and that's probably, I think, going to be a reason why people are still to this day talking about the Mothman prophecies.
It's also just like a good title. Like
true.
It's snappy. It really is like the whole package for getting the layman into something a little outside of the norm.
Yeah.
Good writing, interesting title. They made a movie that you kind of remember seeing on TBS about it. You know, like I'd buy that book at an airport.
Yeah, it definitely didn't we watch the Mothman prophecies
together? Really early.
A very long time ago.
Yeah.
I don't remember it that much, but I do think Indrid Cold is in the movie.
He is. Yes.
So, here's the little catch. These are names that are just in my brain of like, you got to remember who these guys are, because they skew the results, maybe, or maybe they don't. That's the actual problem, is maybe they don't. But I think it's important to mention that there is the presence of James Moseley and Gray Barker in the story of the Grinning Man.
Sure.
Both of these men were, as I understand it, legitimately involved in investigations surrounding weird stuff, UFOs and the like. But they were also known for being mischievous and pulling pranks. They would straight up, most notably, they collabed on these hoax letters. Apparently, they got drunk together and wrote hoax letters to George Adamski.
I feel like this is a thing that used to happen way more than it does now. Like, now you get drunk and write depressed tweets, but the people used to just get drunk and try to make someone who they happen to have the address for lose their mind. You know?
It's almost like it reminds me of chain letters. And I mean, I guess not chain letters, but you're just trying to provoke somebody to believe some bullshit purely on a lark. Which, the modern day equivalent would be getting drunk, making some sock puppet accounts on Wikipedia, and then editing an article in the Wikipedia entry for Garfield talking about how John's propensity to do a blimp remains the same.
It's so great that you can give such specific references to something that I kind of remember you mentioning in high school.
That is a very obscure, incredible. You can't. People have talked with. Okay. Here's another good reason to check out our Patreon and join it and join our Discord through it, because people on there there are a couple people on there who are familiar with the fact that I am obsessed with an old internet thread that I can't find anymore from a forum where they're talking about Wikipedia vandalism, and that there is a guy who used to go in, and I remember seeing this on the Wikipedia page before it got edited back out. Mm-hmm. There was a guy who was obsessed with editing, I want to say, the Garfield comic strip Wikipedia page to talk about, they would add nonsense into the article. And the one thing that I remember is that it said something about John Arbuckle, his propensity to do a blimp remains the same. That's BALIMP. I'm sure I brought this up on the podcast 2-3 years ago at this point, but
probably
it's that is a phrase that's that's gonna one day be my
it's your
Manchurian candidate. Yeah.
Oh yeah, there you go.
If you try to look up his propensity to do a blimp remains the same on Google, you won't find this. I can't find this. I've tried.
Google's redirects you to WebMD if you type that in, I think. It doesn't know what to do with you.
It doesn't know specifically what you're talking about, but it knows enough to know that you're mentally in a troubled place if you're Googling that. Anyways, Jesus, what was I talking about? So, okay, yeah, so Moseley and Barker, who, Moseley has admitted to doing multiple hoaxes. They're I would call them controversial figures. Moseley also ran, and Barker ran Saucer Smear, the zine. So I would call them controversial if it wasn't for the fact that they were also kind of important to the scene at the time. I guess you can be important and controversial.
Oh yeah, for sure you can.
You see what I'm saying. So, and check this out. This is also me back, like, soft backdoor. I want to do another Men in Black episode because I've learned a lot about them. But take Indrid Cold, for instance, right? So if you have spent enough time in this world, what do you think? Like, what do you picture, Niall, when you hear the name Indrid Cold?
It's basically the same thing I would picture for a Men in Black, where it's like mostly, and I've heard that theory of like Indrid Cold is a specific Men in Black, but like, you know, humanoid, but the features are kind of not fully there, but they're like, I basically what I really picture is the Watchers from Fringe, because that was just like when I learned about what the Men in Black actually were, I think I was watching that show, and they're kind of in that same, they are a riff on that concept, so it just became like my go-to image for it. So
yeah, you're right, and I'm so glad that you instantly knew that I was trying to get you to say Men in Black, because when I hear Indrid Cold, I think of what that looks like, and then my brain also makes the association of like, oh, he's like a Man in Black, which then you want to ask yourself, well, what the fuck are the Men in Black? And there's a lot of different answers to that.
Oh yeah.
What I find interesting about Indrid Cold being a Man in Black is that, once again, Mosley and Barker's presence in this story colors my conception of it a little. Not because I know they did something, but because they're just there and I know they've historically done things. But I've read a thing not too long ago.
Because of their track record, you know?
Because that... Definitely told that story on the podcast at one point. Yeah. Considering their track record, hey, Godspeed to anybody who catches that reference, because I'm not gonna belabor it.
We're not gonna go
telling it
again.
That
far.
But people, I'm sure will hopefully somebody out there will catch the reference. Considering Mosley and Barker's track record, it raises a little bit of red flag. A little police siren in my brain goes off.
For sure.
Because another thing that I read, that this is a thread I really, really, really want to pull on, is that there are some researchers who have suggested the possibility that the Men in Black phenomenon, in part, could have maybe in some ways developed from people like Mosley and Barker, if not specifically them, those people dressing like feds and going out to intentionally spook other UFO investigations to get an upper hand on the investigation, or to like fuck with these inter-faction struggles at the reins, which again, oh my god, it makes more sense. We're going to talk about NICAP a little bit in this when we talk about all this.
Sure.
Because apparently there was some regional NICAP like disagreements about who had exclusivity to one of the people's stories. And when you read that, and you also read another person who says there is some evidence to maybe suggest that the people who were Men in Black were people fucking with the other UFO researchers, but were themselves researchers who wanted the control over the... You just read that and you're like, what's going on here? What happened? I mean, look, Men in Black, they're taking on the persona of like you're really stereotypical like Fed, right? Like that's what they're invoking when they show up.
But I love how much of UFO and conspiracy kind of stories and stuff can basically be chalked up to fucking good old boys will be boys stuff. Like pranks played on each other. The CIA was just like a fucking do whatever bullshit when it first started. Like there's so much of these things. It's like, man,
yeah,
it's silly. Like
it is, but also like if it somehow turns out that Mosley dressed up like a Fed, smeared, fucking white shit all over his face and lipstick, because one of the big things with the Men in Black is that they would like look human, but like they're kind of doing it wrong, and it like just doing weird stuff like that to throw people off and confuse them and fuck up this investigation for, like, let's say this particular faction of NICAP. It's a really fun and compelling story, even though at its core it's like just completely silly and absurd. But that's I'm getting off in the weeds a lot here. I've been like, I love this story. So anyways, none of this, I should say, none of this is to outright dismiss all the stories about the Grinning Man. I don't know what, we were talking about how there is a mystery to this. I don't know what the Grinning Man actually is. I don't know necessarily what's true here, but I did want to provide some context that seemed interesting and relevant with the presence of people like Mosley and Parker. So, with all this in mind, how did the story of the Grinning Man, aka Indrid Cold, come to be? Now, the story begins on the night of October 11th, 1966. A New Jersey UFO flap was happening.
Okay.
So, multiple witnesses glimpsed something strange in the sky. Keel tells how a policeman and his wife watched this thing in the sky, describing it as, quote, a blazing white light as big as a car. And they talk about how it, quote, nearly scraped the 550-foot tall television tower outside of Pompton Lakes, New Jersey, site of the large DuPont explosives factory. Elsewhere, a Sergeant Benjamin Thompson and a patrolman Edward Wester, both of the Wannock. Oh God, I should have looked up how to pronounce that. Wannock Reservoir Police observe what was apparently the same object as it flies low over the nearby reservoir. So people are seeing a weird light that is flying relatively low and is really bright. Sergeant Thompson describes it, quote, the light was brilliantly white. It lit up the whole area for about 300 yards. In fact, it blinded me when I got out of the patrol car to look at it, and I couldn't see for about 20 minutes afterwards. Now, that's crazy if it's true.
Yeah, that's a very, like, the military just turns out to be testing, like, the predecessor, like, the military-grade flashlight. You know, have you ever seen people who go, like, really into flashlights?
No, but I didn't know that was a thing, but you saying it, it was suddenly like my memories of a past life of understanding what a flashlight enthusiast was just all came flooding back in my brain because I can picture that now. But
yeah,
go ahead.
Because some people will have these flashlights that they're like, this is one with a 3-mile beam and stuff.
Yes.
Like, it's I got on flashlight TikTok for a second, like a couple months ago.
As one does.
As you do. And everyone's just like, here's the flood setting. And it just like lights the room up like it's like a perfectly dark room up into like it's noon. And then they'll go out in their yard and it's like, I can only turn this on for 3 seconds because the FAA called me last time I did it. Like it's literally, people are like wild with their fucking flashlights. So I just was like, maybe the military had, was working on a fucking blinding beam, you know?
That wouldn't surprise. I'm actually pretty sure I have read that they have put some research towards stuff like that before. That actually reminds me. I have been occasionally dipping in and out of this guy's videos on YouTube who talks about things like MK Ultra and some other much darker stuff. And the content is pretty interesting, but then because it's YouTube's whole thing is emulating TikTok and Instagram and the short video content, which frankly, I would be embarrassed to admit how much I occasionally get suckered into those things, but that guy was doing short form content and I couldn't help myself because he had one that was, what did it say? It said something along the lines of like, how to build your own homemade eyesight deleter.
What?
And
okay.
He like posts this like short form, like dubiously legal content about how to make something fucked up. And anyways, apparently that's not that hard to do if you really wanted to do it, where you could just basically develop something that could blind somebody if you turn it on near them. Which is a little scary. I mean, this guy his whole content thing is being scary because he's talking about how scary, all the fucked up government projects and stuff are. But anyways, that's a little bit of a tangent.
Calling it an eyesight deleter is like that's some wild ass branding, and I gotta give shouts out to whoever that is.
People out there are probably people out there who know who I'm talking about, and I am like creeped out enough by his content that I don't know how much I want to just flatly associate. But
fair.
It is interesting. It is interesting. So, anyways, they see this bright light in the sky. The police officers see it, which, as we all know, police officers are more credible than a normal human being that doesn't have the
just objectively
superpowers of observation that a police officer has.
All that 2 weeks of training and an IQ maximum really helps them out with that. Yeah.
So they see that, and then about 40 miles further south, in Elizabeth, New Jersey, something else is happening at, quote, approximately the same time. Now, approximately the same time does a lot of heavy lifting here for me because
how far away is it?
Well, it's not. It's so it's 40 miles south, right? But I don't know what approximately the same time means. What I wish that I had a time that I could just tell you it was this time because this is happening the same day.
Right.
But all Keel says in the book is approximately the same time. So here's what was happening, okay, in Elizabeth. 2 young boys, James Yanchidis and Martin Munov, a.k.a. Mouse. So I'm just going to call them James and Mouse, okay?
Okay.
So James and Mouse are walking home along 4th Street and New Jersey Street. They come to a corner that is parallel to the turnpike for that area. And here they describe the turnpike as being elevated. There's a very steep incline. And this very high wire fence runs along the entire street, which Keel then suggests that means this would not be likely that anybody would be able to just quickly get up and over this high fence and into this area where the turnpike is. It's well fenced off, I guess is the point. And on this street corner that these kids are at, there are some very bright streetlights. And they stop near this corner, and these 2 boys see what they describe as, quote, the strangest guy we've ever seen. So James is the first one who sees this guy, and he says, quote, he was standing behind that fence. I don't know how he got there. He was the biggest man I ever saw. And then Mouse says, quote, Jimmy nudged me and said, who's that guy standing behind you? I looked around, and there he was, behind that fence, just standing there. He pivoted around and looked right at us, and then he grinned a big old grin.
Jesus, okay.
Indrid Cold actually kind of creeps me out. It feels like horror movie stuff, and it's also like when you think of the term enshittification.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like enshittification could apply to things other than just like technology. Like you could say that there's an enshittification of like what is the acceptable scary image in a horror movie.
Yeah, sure.
You know what I'm saying? Like it's usually something with a like big long mouth and big hollow eyes and maybe it smiles, right? This is in 1966, way before that is a thing, right?
Yeah.
It feels it wouldn't be so scary if it was. To me, it almost is scarier because it takes place in the mid 60s. That's what makes it like extra creepy to me. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, like I mean, all these things. Every factor has a thing. Like every factor changes how things feel, and so I do think there's something to be said for period things having more potency in certain areas because like we're too steeped in the modern times and like know all of the our world our brains are too reactive to like, oh, that's not how phones do that, that's not how this works, that's not where like in the 60s, I couldn't do all that with every single thing happening on screen. Like, I don't know how cars work then exactly, you know? And so, like, I think there's that your brain is more willing to live in the world in and like be open to being spooked and stuff like that.
I agree. It's I don't know. Indrid Cold.
It's the trick of It Follows, which is like the heavy lifting that like shell phone thing does in terms of like making my brain stop worrying about what time this takes place in is crazy. Like,
yeah,
it was such a specific, well thought, like well executed choice that weirdly makes that movie work. In a way that I can't fully explain.
No, the time, the out of place, out of timelessness, the fact that you couldn't make any sort of passive in the back of your mind determination about when this is supposed to be happening does go, I think, a long way to making it creepier, for sure.
Yeah.
And yeah, the shell phone case, which like could be from 2015, or it could be from 2003, or it could be from 1995.
Or it could be from 3000 whatever, because it's not something we have. Like, it is far enough away and doesn't exist that like it lets my brain just like, oh yeah, whatever, cool, great.
Yeah. Anyways, I just wanted to say my piece about how creepy Indrid Cold is, and the stories don't get all that much. Well, okay, this is actually a thing that I hope to investigate through talking about this, is like Indrid Cold is like, some people who encounter him have very positive things to say about their encounter, even if he's off-putting, and then other people just describe something really creepy that doesn't make any sense. And is like, you know, like this story here where these kids just see him and he just stands there smiling at them and is in a place where he just shouldn't be. It's like, those are the two versions of stories that you get with Indrid Cold. Mm-hmm. Anyways, these kids see this guy, and it's at this point in the story that Keel shows up, and in tow are Jim Moseley and, for whatever reason, an actor named Chuck McCann. I looked up McCann, and I didn't find much that could explain his presence here, other than maybe he was a friend of theirs or was interested in the story, or all of the above. But he was an actor, I guess, most well known for his work in children's television, puppeteering and animation, had a few roles on sitcoms. He did have a role in a sitcom that was about aliens. I don't know if he was just like, hey, John, could I tag along to maybe see if I could, you know, get some ideas for the sitcom role.
Yeah, that would be weird to like do it. It's like doing a ride along, but for an alien sitcom. It's all right.
Yeah, I doubt that's what it was, but he's just here, and Keel doesn't explain why McCann is with him in this story. He's just like, yeah, actor McCann is here.
It's just John Keel's just name dropping in like the weirdest
I guess. It is, yeah. It would be name dropping if it made any sense to be name dropping at all. So, you know, yeah, Keel is with these guys, his crew here, and they interview these two boys. The police will also interview them, but this is mostly from Keel's perspective. So they talk with these boys, and apparently they both tell the same exact story. The man is over 6 feet tall. He's really big, and they talk about how he was dressed in a, quote, sparkling green coverall costume, and it shimmered under the streetlights and seemed to sort of reflect under that light that they could see at the corner. He had a wide black belt around his waist, and then Keel says how McCann is like 6'2". Okay. And they ask the boys, well, is he as tall or what as McCann here? And the boys say, no, he was bigger, he was taller, and much broader. So they're describing like the fucking oh my god, who's the Spider-Man villain who's like a gray
Rhino
concrete man?
The concrete guy, Tombstone.
Tombstone. I was picturing Tombstone a little bit from this description. Or
like Solomon Grundy.
Yeah, exactly. So they said that he was much bigger than this guy, that he had a dark complexion and, quote, little round eyes that were real beady and set far apart. whether or not he had these features, they couldn't distinguish his hair, ears, or nose. And they also didn't notice his hands. So there's a bunch of details missing. They just know he was standing there smiling big as fuck.
Okay, so where did the fucking spindly, lanky, tall, cold Indrid Cold come from?
You know, I think that might be Tumblr sexy man disease that's been applied to him since the story hit the internet. But here's the thing. I think this encounter is not them naming Indrid Cold, but it is one of the earliest accounts of a guy who could possibly be Indrid Cold, because what Keel's about to get into is that there are multiple encounters with a Grinning Man that are kind of similar.
Okay.
So maybe this isn't the same. Maybe he's the same species as the spindly one. I don't know. But yeah, so he's standing behind this fence, and his feet are obscured behind the tall grass that he's standing in. So this is what we know about him. And apparently the kids were freaked out when they saw this guy. Go figure.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So these kids don't stick around. They head home. And then there's this weird aside that Keel mentions that I guess there were rumors in the area that the kids were in that a, quote, tall green man had chased a middle-aged resident down the same street that same exact night. And then Keel's just like, we heard these rumors, we tried to track down information on them, and we got absolutely nothing.
Okay.
So I don't know where that rumor came from, and there is nothing else to go on other than Keel just mentions it. It seems relevant, but
you think there would be the rumor was it from a paper? Was it from just talking to some dude at a bar? Where did this come from?
I don't know. So Keel here, he notes that it was strange that this large man had somehow gotten behind the tall fence near this turnpike. None of the scenarios that they could think of that put the man behind the fence made total sense to them. So the thing that they mention is could he have been a trucker whose vehicle stalled out, and for whatever reason, he maybe then would have climbed down that steep embankment to simply stand there, where he apparently seemed, when the kids first saw him, he seemed to be staring at a nearby house. So if he was a person who had a reason to be there, they just couldn't come up with why would you be there? You're not climbing over the fence this way or that way. It's just an odd place for a person to be. They don't know. But no matter how he got there, it seemed that he would have wanted to get down there. Getting into that spot required effort and some sort of rationale. And they had no reason. So...
Do they know what house he was looking at? Do they ever look into that?
That's a good question. I have to assume that it won't, because I think they do go to the spot, but maybe it doesn't get brought up in the book. Maybe I missed it, but I didn't see anything about this is the house he was staring at. Okay. The other thing that they point out is if this was a guy who was down there and his car was in trouble or whatever, then why did he, instead of call to these two kids who saw him for help, and instead he just stood there and just grinned and said nothing? None of it makes sense. So
yeah, it doesn't logically work at all.
Yeah. So Keel then explains that how it's another odd occurrence on a night that, by all the accounts they had gathered, was pretty strange for New Jersey because people were seeing UFOs. And he asks, could the Grinning Man and the UFO sightings somehow be connected? And this is where that bomb drops. Keel says that this is not the only story of an encounter with the Grinning Man, and in each of these stories, UFOs seem to hover in his wake.
Okay.
So the first story that he brings up, and probably the one that we're going to spend the rest of our time on this episode on, is where the name Indrid Cold comes from. So this is from Woodrow Derenberger, and his story begins on November 2nd, 1966. So Derenberger was returning from this trip to Marietta, Ohio, and he's driving home to Mineral Wells, West Virginia. He's traveling alone, and he's on the I-77 near Parkersburg, West Virginia. And as he's driving alone at night, suddenly another vehicle overtakes him. Now, Derenberger describes this quote-unquote vehicle as something that he'd never seen before in his life. He said it looked like a, quote, giant kerosene lamp, and that it had passed by Derenberger's truck, and as it passed by, it turns sideways and blocks both lanes of the highway.
Huh.
So it somehow is able to, like, almost, I don't know, like, transform and come up in front of him, and it blocks the highway and makes him stop. Derenberger has to pull over and come to a stop. So Derenberger's like, what the fuck is going on? He gets out of his vehicle, and a strange man comes out of this transforming vehicle thing. It is a dark-suited man, and he is grinning. It's so weird. These stories are so fucking weird. I love them. So he comes out, and this grinning man comes to Derenberger's car, to his truck. And sorry, I think I accidentally said that Derenberger gets out of his vehicle. He is still in the vehicle, I should say, very clearly. It is the grinning man that gets out of their vehicle, and as he comes up to Derenberger's truck door, Derenberger watches as the vehicle that he had gotten out of has started to lift off the ground and eventually begins to float about 40 feet up.
Okay.
So Derenberger then says that he starts to receive what he can only describe as a telepathic communication from this grinning man. So he hears him in his mind. And this man tells Derenberger that he is something called a seeker. What that is, not entirely sure at this point.
Sure. Okay.
He then kind of just talks telepathically to Derenberger, asks him who he is. Derenberger explains, I'm just a salesman. And this entity says to him, well, my name is Indrid Cold, and I have come from, quote, a country much less powerful than the United States.
Interesting.
So he continues to ask some somewhat mundane questions of Derenberger. Some of them were questions about the nearby town. And then after a while of this interaction, the grinning man, Cold, finishes up and says, "It's been nice talking to you, Mr. Derenberger. We will be seeing you again."
The Seekers, I guess?
Yeah, the Seekers, that's right. So Cold then backs away from the truck, and the vehicle that had floated up now is returned back to the ground, and he gets into it, and this vehicle just gets up and just shoots off into the night sky. And so
were there other
Derenberger,
people on the road at this time, or
I don't think so. I think he is alone, and that doesn't see other people. If there were other people, I'm sure it would have been in the story. Because there would be no way to not witness the things that were going on here. So, that's his initial encounter, and this is where the name Indrid Cold comes from. And Derenberger would go out and talk about his story eventually. But to frame this a little bit, to give you some interesting little things to think about. 10 days after this man's encounter, after Derenberger meets Indrid Cold, that's when the Mothman incident of Point Pleasant, West Virginia starts to happen.
Yeah.
Which then, of course, as we all know, that's what leads to the Silver Bridge in Point Pleasant collapsing and killing a bunch of people. So we can't get into it right now, but Indrid Cold, of course, is a factor in the Mothman prophecy stuff, and it's pretty much believed that Indrid Cold in the Mothman prophecies and in that story, same Indrid Cold as what Derenberger met this night.
All right. What's fun is I really was bought in on the Indrid Cold as a Tumblr sexy man type thing, but it really sounds like he's more the way that I hear everyone talk about the actual character Jack Reacher getting described in the books, where it's just like he's like a fucking bear of a man. He's so big, he's so broad, he's so thick, he's so fucking chiseled and like big. Meaty hands, like all that. It feels like he's more of a Jack Reacher than a fucking Tumblr sexy man, which is a very different vibe for Indrid Cold, and also maybe why Tom Cruise was an interesting choice to play the character for a while. So.
Well, it's when something intriguing and humanoid, and I guess doesn't have to be humanoid, spends enough time online, the stories of Indrid Cold or whatever, you have two paths that you can go down. You can become giant muscle bimbo, or you can become twinkified. And for whatever reason, Indrid Cold, the menacing aura, he's like that fucking shithead from fucking that animated show I don't like, Hell of a Boss or whatever.
I don't even
whatever.
Oh
my God, Has-Been Hotel. He's like Indrid Cold has become the Has-Been Hotel skinny devil thing.
Sure. Which I don't know. It's such a weird thing because like I get why a big smile, you put that on a spindly person and it's like, oh, it's creepy. It's fucking
Scarecrow-esque.
Or Series of Unfortunate Events. It's but a grinning fucking slab of beef is also terrifying.
Scarier,
like,
I think.
Yeah, like it's at least less done, Like it's.
Well, I feel like the Indrid Cold, who has become the Has-Been Hotel extra of the modern era, I could just karate chop his spindly legs and he would just collapse like a tower of fucking toothpicks. Like, that's not scary to me. I mean, I get the idea that like maybe these entities exert some sort of paranormal power that their physical strength doesn't actually matter. But like, check out E.T., the tweet, E.T., me and my friends would have killed that thing with hammers for sure. That's how I feel about the twink version of Indrid Cold.
I think the assumption is that once you see the twink version, you're going to become so horny that you just collapse. Like, and
I didn't factor that in.
Prepare yourself. So I think honestly, that's what they're relying on.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I didn't think about that. Okay, so we kind of talked about how Indrid Cold, it depends. It's like a coin flip on whether the stories are making him sound like one of the Men in Black or whether he's an alien or some sort of interdimensional creature. I'm kind of leaning in the Mr. Mixapidalic direction here with Indrid Cold, but like a big old slab of beef. It just depends on who you talk to. But here's the thing: the story of Indrid Cold obviously doesn't end here, but Woodrow Derenberger, Woody, let's call him Woody because that's how Keel talks about him. Calls him Woody. Sure. So much more happens with Woody because he basically claims that he would have follow-up interactions with Indrid Cold and communications. And he would receive these communications telepathically and relay them in his stories that would sometimes come out in the media, and he would also write a book. Well, somebody would help him write a book on the topic, because here's what he claims. Okay, and this is why I think we get such bizarre variations of Indrid Cold.
Okay,
or I guess this is one of the what would you call this? Delineating factors. Delimiting, whatever, you know what I mean. This is one of those things that starts to branch off into another path and create a new type of Indrid Cold. And they were, so the point is, before that they were able to take Tumblr technology and turn him into a sexy, scary twink, they were already giving you different variations depending on what they wanted to see in Indrid Cold. Yeah, all the way back in the 60s. So, God, I don't know how much of the last 15 minutes of the episode is just completely inscrutable to somebody who has no idea what the Tumblr sexy man thing is. I can say is Google Tumblr sexy man. It'll all make sense.
Yeah, you'll get there very quickly. Don't worry about it.
So here's what Indrid Cold told Woody. He claimed that he was informed that Indrid Cold is an alien, and he's an alien from a planet called Lanulos. Okay. And that Indrid Cold told him that this planet lied within a galaxy known as Ganymedes. And apparently, Woody would wind up going on space travels with Indrid Cold on his spaceship to Lanulos.
Oh, for sure. Of course he would. Fantastic. What was that like?
So, while Woody got to visit Lanulos, he got to also, of course, meet the Lanulosians. And I don't know if that's the proper pronunciation, but that's my interpretation of it. And apparently, they have a rich culture that he would relay in his book. And apparently, over the next couple years, Indrid Cold would bring 2 other Lanulosians who were presumably also Seekers that would come to Earth with him. They were named Demo Hassan and Carl Ardo. And there's even less information about them than Indrid Cold. So again, he would co-author a book. Woody would co-author a book with a guy named Harold Hubbard, and the book was called Visitors from Lanulos, and that explained all this shit. From Keel's perspective, from the Keel side of things, they would take Woody and bring him on to, this guy's come up on the show before, but they would go on to Long John Nebel's radio show, which is a show that discussed a lot of weird stuff. Long John Nebel, by the way, is is straight up in my fucking crosshairs. I got sights set on him because he is associated with some weird ass shit.
All right, I'm in. So take me on a journey.
So they would interview him. Gray Barker would, of course, publish articles about it. They would also go out together. Gray Barker plus John Keel. They would go out to mineral wells where he lived and just take a look around the area. And apparently, when they went there, they checked out Woody's house. And while they were there, they saw some small, strange lights, unexplained, bobbing around in a field behind the house. Now, I kind of want to read this next part to you verbatim because it fucking rules. Here's what it says. Being intrepid UFO investigators, we went into the field to take a closer look. Woody, unfortunately, had failed to tell us 2 things, both rather important. First, the fence around the field was electrified. We discovered this quickly enough and went sailing over it into a large mud puddle. Our sudden flight discouraged Gray from trying to climb the fence. A few minutes later, we learned that there was a very bad-tempered bull in that field. This is the part of the little clip that makes me crazy, is it says, our years as bullfight aficionados in Spain came in handy. Instead of trying to outrun the bull, we stood our ground, flashed our flashlight in his unhappy face, and bluffed him long enough to stage a dignified retreat.
So they just happened to have, the lowdown on how to deal with a bull. What the fuck?
I don't know. I guess so. That's the way John Keel tells the story. He's like, I tapped into my years doing bullfighting in Spain. We were able to fend off this pissed off bull with a flashlight. But the real punchline is they never figured out what those lights were. They didn't really find anything else about them. But Woody would tell them that these lights were likely being projected from Indrid Cold's ship that was hiding somewhere overhead. And again, as his story expanded, he would tell them that Indrid Cold would come with his friends, presumably these Seekers, and visit the farm. And sometimes they would even just arrive by regular automobile, like Earth style almost automobile.
Sometimes they would just pull up in a taxi. Jesus. Yeah. Okay.
And so this is why, if you hang out around Woody's house, you would relatively frequently see strange objects just hovering in the sky. So they found Keel and Barker. They find some other people who reported things to the area's police, the Parkersburg police. They track those people down. They talk with them, and they basically say, Keel just says these people confirmed that some things were seen, like there were sightings of lights of ostensibly UFOs. But apparently, those people wanted to remain anonymous, and that they just straight up didn't want to get involved with the story, so they just have to say, we found people who corroborate some things, but we can't tell you anything else because they didn't want to get involved. Which, like, whatever. Like, it is what it is. I could see that being true, you know.
Yeah. It's convenient,
now, it is awfully convenient. Now, I want to cap this off with one last thing. So, beyond the main points of Derenberger's story that we've already outlined, Keel brings up some interesting stuff surrounding how his story broke and what happened afterwards. And I'm just going to read this section for you, okay? So they talk to those guys. Those guys refuse to give their names for the story. They don't want to cooperate or be involved. And then it goes on to say this. Woody, however, agreed to a press conference and appeared on radio and TV. The local NICAP subcommittee zeroed in on him, urging him to tell his story to no one but NICAP. So remember how I said NICAP wanted some exclusivity here.
Yep.
He voluntarily submitted to an extensive physical and psychiatric examination arranged by NICAP. A leading local psychiatrist conducted the tests. God, I would love to get that psychiatrist's name. I might be able to. NICAP was nonplussed when the psychiatrist himself became a, quote, contactee a month later and now admits to both person-to-person confrontations and telepathic communications with the UFO entities. While he talks freely about these contacts and his claims conform to all the patterns, he naturally does not want his name used. But he has talked anonymously on radio programs and backed Derenberger to the hilt. There were many other contactees in the Ohio Valley area, most of whom were completely unknown to Woody. Only Derenberger's story of November 2nd received any publicity. The wire services circulated it nationwide, but his later experiences are not even known to the hardcore ufologists. It is certainly startling when contactees hundreds of miles from West Virginia recite details identical to the things Woody had told us privately. Derenberger is not a learned man. Indrid Cold and his funny companions told him, "Oh, this is the Lanulo stuff." But they make mention that Ganymede is a large satellite of the planet Jupiter and not a galaxy, like Indrid Cold supposedly told him. And this is where it says that when Woody was there, he visited cities on Lanulos and described the people there as wearing, quote, colorful shorts, and all signs, posters, etc. appear to be written in a, quote, squiggly Oriental-like writing. And that the air and temperature are identical to Earth's. And this ends here by saying, we stopped by to see Woody again in the spring of 1967 and found him hiding behind drawn curtains, trying to avoid the hundreds of UFO believers, skeptics, and the just plain curious who invaded his property every night and every weekend.
Damn. All right.
So the big thing that you will see people say about Derenberger's story, something that the story is being something that he stuck to until 1990 and repeated until the day he died in 1990. He gained absolutely nothing from going public with it and maintaining the story. In fact, he mostly lost things for telling the story.
Sure.
His family apparently received years of harassing phone calls. People supposedly lost their jobs over this story. And Derenberger just telling the story didn't sit well enough with the family. Woody would get headaches and get depressed. And eventually, supposedly because of all this, Woody's wife divorced him. And Woody would end up moving away to a totally new place to get away from people who knew him for being the alien nut job.
Yeah, I had to go kind of start anew. All right.
Yeah. So Woody Derenberger is like the Indrid Cold name guy, but I find it amazing that it completely deviates into like Space Brothers territory.
Yeah.
As opposed to the scary like slab refrigerator of a man with a grin. I'm curious how that happened exactly. But I think that we could probably do a lot more discussion and a lot more finding out about this entity in part 2.
Fantastic. All right. I wondered if you were going to hit me with that.
It was, I never ever set out for these to be multiple parts.
You never
happen.
Start there. Yeah.
They just happen that way, and this is such a huge topic that I couldn't confine it to one part. Really, I would just have to focus on Derenberger's story, but I wanted to talk about Indrid Cold and how that all came about. And I think it's more interesting to examine Indrid Cold from all these stories and Keel's perspective than just the one guy.
I really like when something like Indrid Cold or a cryptid or like some sort of entity is just these stories are thought of as the same being, but they're not the same thing.
Right.
when people just kind of pull these things together for whatever reason, and you have to, when you read it all together, you're just like, these seem like two different creatures. Why is this? And I guess that's because it's John Keel is the reason that these kind of get linked together.
Maybe I would almost say it's more Derenberger.
Okay.
He might be a big reason why they would link. It almost he's just trying to say there's these stories of a creepy grinning man, and he's associated with UFOs. Like, a creepy grinning man is one thing, but if UFOs are sighted in the area, then it means something. It could mean something a little more.
Sure.
And all the just weird little details about the creepy grinning man, right? I don't think we're going to come to any definitive answer on who is Indrid Cold, was he real, what is the grinning man, but we're going to be able to tell quite a few stories that are very strange and very fascinating.
All right.
And yeah, I think just this is your path, right? You can go on the scary Indrid Cold path, or you can go on the Space Brothers Indrid Cold path. Go ahead and make your choice.
Hey, if you want to know another way I've changed since the beginning of this podcast, at the beginning of the podcast, Space Brothers Indrid Cold would have been way more interesting to me because I hadn't read a lot of the Space Brothers stuff and was not like aware of the tropes and everything. But now the idea of just this fucking weird grinning man that just shows up and kind of menaces people is more intriguing than another version of I'm a special boy who got taken to an alien planet to see their advanced society that is kind of influenced by an exotic, whatever the exotic race du jour of the time period is,
Yes. No, exactly. 100%. And it's like, it's another one of those things where it's just like, you sound like it's very Adamski derivative, it feels like these other things, and everybody wanted it. And that's where you kind of start to go like, well, what are the motives of this guy telling this story? Like, you'd think that if a guy telling the story got the media attention he wanted right off the bat, and he was just coming from a purely cynical place, right? Mm-hmm. He's just like, I'm going to make money off of talking about being with aliens, right? The idea of sticking to that story for almost 3 decades and just constantly taking L's because of it makes you think that there's something there that he believed, whether or not it was true. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just can't quite... I don't really understand what that might be. I can't really even begin to speculate.
Yeah. It's not a clear-cut case here.
No. But I do have some more stuff about our friend Woody here that we can get into in part 2 to further illustrate some stuff. But it's still weird. It's still mysterious to me, and I don't quite get it. But I'm interested. Right.
But it intrigues me, though.
Absolutely. So, Niall, are you ready for a big question?
Oh, I'm always ready.
Okay. Is there another, maybe even better facial expression that Indrid Cold could use to better convey whether his presence here on Earth is negative or positive? I will let it be open to your interpretation, whether it's negative or positive, but I want, what would you want to, not what you would want, but what do you think he could be expressing outside of just smiling at you? Like, here's the thing. smiling, it's kind of like it's a you would typically expect it to be a positive thing to see,
sure.
right? But because of all the contextual things surrounding Indrid Cold, it comes off as pretty scary and menacing.
Mm-hmm.
That got me wondering, what if he was like frowning really hard and like maybe looked like he was about to cry? Would that have the opposite effect? It's a negative expression, but you're just like, oh, the scary entity's having a bad time. I'm okay with that.
God, I really hope this is taken in the spirit in which I mean it, which is very harmless. Remember when there was that ad campaign for, I think it was like picking up litter or something? Okay. That was just like a Native American guy crying. And it's like a sign of like, you guys need to change something. I think this would be that on like a 10,000x scale, where if an alien comes down and is like on the verge of tears, just looking at what we've done, you know, I think that would be a pretty big warning sign. You know,
it communicates so much wordlessly.
Yeah,
and what you find with a lot of these Space Brothers fuckers is that they have so much shit to say.
Yeah,
and it's very
I don't know why. Yeah, it's so much fucking... You get, like... I love how many Space Brothers stories involve PowerPoints, basically. You know? They took me on the ship and they showed me this, like... They basically gave me a timeshare presentation about how Earth sucks. And it's like, sure, fine, all right.
Yeah, if they pulled me onto the spaceship and there was just a clip art slideshow with those 3D fonts saying, like, how to save the Earth, I would be checked out so fast.
Did you ever do the thing where you set the animations so it would like letters would go in one by one, and they also each one would get a sound effect?
Yes.
You know, I'm just imagining. Imagine getting this. If you're a sketch comedian out there, have fun with this one. Someone getting abducted and they're sat down to see like the technological advancements, and it just like the slideshow presentation I made in elementary school when I found out you could make animations and stuff happen.
Oh my god. You just unlocked some really early memories for me, because one of my favorite things to do in elementary school is log on to the Windows 98, Windows 2000 computers that we had, and make comedy bits with PowerPoint using sound effects and animations. That was my favorite thing to do, and I would try and make those and then show them to my friends to get them to laugh, and vice versa. And I completely forgot that I did that. But yeah, now that's a different story. If they beamed me up on the ship and they're just like, check out our comedy bit where we're using like the clip art, like I'd be like, wow, that's you remind me of myself. Maybe we can get along.
Yeah, it's real endearing.
Yeah, it's real endearing. So I think that if Indrid Cold would have another expression on his face, if you can remember The Lonely Island's Jizz in My Pants, basically just that face.
Yeah, that works.
That Andy Samberg makes.
Yeah, biting your lip and all that. I had... My thought was, you know when a cartoon character sucks on a lemon?
Hell, yeah, I do.
And that's like that real scrunch, like...
Yeah, they kind of turn into a little butthole of a mouth.
Yeah, imagine an alien coming down and you just see it in the distance making that face.
Yeah, well, you know how there's the Simpsons like video memes of people taking Simpsons clips and editing like a funny face into a place where it normally wouldn't be in the show, and one of them is Homer eating the lemon and puckering up.
Yep.
That's the same. That would basically be the same idea. It's like a Simpsons meme.
I don't know exactly what emotion that's supposed to evoke in me, the viewer.
It's the emotion of sour.
I guess, like, what message is that trying to get across?
See, that's almost the scariest possible one, because it's not only not instantly, like, smiling, frowning, that conveys something pretty instantaneously. A puckered up sour pair of lips. You
don't know what to do with that.
Yeah, it's the not knowing that's scary.
Yeah. And a bit that an alien face looks like a butthole.
Yeah, a little bit about that.
I think that would be compelling. You know, someone... Cool. A24, call me.
They did that sheep bullshit. They could do the sour lemon alien face bullshit. Yeah. Easy peasy.
Who made Smile? Was that like Paramount or some shit?
Oh, I was gonna say. No, I don't know. I don't know who that was.
Fair.
Probably A24.
Anyway. No, it was specifically it was a bigger studio trying to do an A24 movie. Was what I was trying. I think it's Paramount, but it's whatever. Yeah, so I think Pucker, cartoon Pucker face is the best one.
That's what the movie would be called. Pucker.
Yeah. And that I can see it now. Oh man.
You don't know what to do with that. Actually, no. That would be you. It would be a fake. It would be like here's the poster.
That's the tagline. Yeah,
yeah. The poster is a zoom in on lips that are puckered. The movie is called Pucker, and then the tagline underneath says, "You don't know what to do with that." Wow. That's wow. Done. Hey, I think we solved it.
Put that out in good Oscar contention season. Beautiful. That thing's winning awards. Oh fuck.
Oh, perfect. Well,
I don't think we're gonna do better than that.
No, I think it's time to move on to some business.
Yeah. All right. So if you want to follow us on social media, we're on Twitter at IGW Podcast.
You can follow us on Facebook.com/ItGetsWeirdPodcast.
And we're on all your favorite podcatchers. If you listen to podcasts somewhere, look up It Gets Weird, and we're almost certainly there. Come on, Kyle, we can get through this.
This is so stupid. What the fuck else? Twitch.tv/ItGetsWeird. Hey, come check it out. It's been a really busy couple weeks. People have probably surmised that from how much I'm complaining about it on the podcast. But come check us out on twitch.tv/ItGetsWeird because Colin and I are in the back half of a Pokemon Fire Red Nuzlocke run that we plan on continuing very, very soon here. Hopefully this weekend. So please come check it out. Give us a follow. It's a lot of fun. You get to chat with us. It's a good time. Email us, itgetsweirdpodcast@gmail.com. If you have something cool you want to tell us about, a story, a question, whatever. Niall mentioned it earlier. We're thinking about doing a grab bag, like a mailbag episode, which actually dovetails into my next thing, Patreon. But email us, itgetsweirdpodcast@gmail.com. Check it out. Send us something. Just let us know how we should refer to you. We might read it on the show if it's good. But if you really, really want to support us, and I know you do, check out patreon.com/itgetsweird. We have a $1 tier, a $2 tier, and a $5 tier. $1 tier is just a tip. That's just you saying, hey, thanks for doing what you do. Here's $1. I enjoy the show. But at the $2 tier and the $5 tier, you're going to get bonus content. At the $2 tier, you get It Gets Weird TV every other week where Niall and I talk about weird television. Right now, we are in season 3 of The X-Files. It's fucking awesome. And as a Patreon donor at the $2 tier and up, you also get to vote for the next show that we watch. So when we finish season 3 of The X-Files, you get to vote for the next thing that we're watching and influence an entire season of our bonus show. Now, at the $5 tier, you get another show in the off weeks of It Gets Weird TV. The show's called World of Weird, where Niall and I talk about whatever the hell we want for like about an hour, sometimes longer. It's a great time. Niall and I just talk about anything that's on our minds. Sometimes it's stuff that relates to the show, that's kind of cutting room floor stuff. A lot of the times it's music and movies, stuff we're interested in. It's a lot of fun, and that's coming out every other week on the $5 tier. When you donate to the $5 tier, you also get a back catalog of all the stuff at the $2 tier and just all the shit that we've made throughout the years. If you join at the $5 tier, that is everything we've ever put out on Patreon so far. So please check it out. Whether you donate to the $2 tier or the $5 tier, you get access to the main show 2 days early on Friday instead of Sunday on your own private Patreon feed. And you get access to the Discord where we're hanging out, chatting with our listeners about all kinds of stuff, cryptids, UFOs, conspiracies, the paranormal, all kinds of things. And this is what I was talking about dovetailing. We're going to create a mailbag section where people can submit questions to the show that we could then read on our mailbag episode that we're planning on maybe doing every once in a while if we get enough good questions in. So please check out patreon.com/itgetsweird. It's the best way to support us. However, if you can't donate, we get it. But please, tell your friends, tell your enemies, tell your congressman all about It Gets Weird podcast.
All right. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for continuing to support the show. This has been It Gets Weird, and I've been Niall.
And I'm Kyle, signing out.
Peace.